you all for joining us today. I think we have only one absence. I think Councilor Weaver was not able to join us tonight. But thank you all for joining us. We have two items to study tonight. Item number one is the Wheat Ridge Prosperity Plan update, and item number two is a legislative advocacy program update. And for item number one, Mr. Goff, would you like to lead us off on that?
As I stick a cookie in my mouth?
Okay.
Sure. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hart, but we're excited to bring forward this evening what we believe should be the last step in discussion on our draft plan. And Steve will introduce it, but we have our Puma team here, and we may have one member joining us online.
Is she on, Margie? That's great.
We have some illnesses going around, so
Yeah.
we're trying to keep.
Our consultant will stand far away to do his presentation.
Stick online too, so.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council. As you may remember, back in August, on August 5th, we came to you with our first draft of the strategic plan, the prosperity plan that we're doing for the strategic plan for economic development. At that time, we did not have what we're calling the matrix, the Appendix A, Part 3 of the study. That has been completed by Puma, and they are going to make a presentation now about the elements of those. For the most part, they broke down our economic development goals moving forward into 4 key areas. Brad Siegel from Puma, the principal of Puma, will outline those tonight. And if you have any specific details about the elements, the tactics within that, we'll be happy to do that. Also with us this evening is Arlene Tanawaki, the principal of Arlen Land Economics, who did all the economic numbers that are associated with the plan. And with that, Brad, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Steve. Thanks, council. It's good seeing you again. Apologies from the Puma team. I have the low-grade head cold, and my colleague has the higher-grade stomach bug. So she stays on Zoom, and I am with you at a safe distance. You may recall we had a study session back in August where we updated you on progress on the prosperity plan. We've been working on this almost a year at this point. So tonight, we're going to give you a broad overview. Have no fear, some of these slides have a lot of granular detail. I will not be reading them, but we have them available in case we want to go back to them. If I could only figure out how to advance the slide. The arrow?
Okay. Freezes sometimes. Is it on, Steve? Is that remote on? The side? Yeah. Just hit the keyboard. Sometimes it's over here. It sticks. Okay.
Aha.
There.
Excellent. So tonight, we're just going to give you a quick recap of the plan itself, the goals framework, the strategies. Now, the tactics will be listed on the slides. The tactics were also sent to council in advance tonight. We won't be reading the tactics, but the tactics are there. So if we want to go back and talk about them tonight, certainly this is a good opportunity to do that. It's been almost a year since we started on the project. So we got started on this beginning of the year. We've gone through an existing conditions analysis, an assessment of the city, not only economic development, but we've talked to a number of departments. So this is an interdepartmental effort. We've been working with the city plan consultants and others as this has moved forward. And then in terms of the final draft plan that you have in your packets tonight, that's about 3 months in process now in terms of different revisions. Goal framework, 4 major goals in this plan, all oriented toward helping Wheat Ridge aim toward prosperity and also economic vitality. So number 1, there's almost half of the recommendations in the plan is related to corridors, nodes, and redevelopment opportunities. Wheat Ridge, a city of corridors, and we think they are distinctly different and have ideas for treating them in different ways. Jobs, innovation, light manufacturing, the industrial area, particularly in the vicinity of I-70, and how do we preserve some of the creative jobs there and light industrial jobs. And we talked about that again back in August. Attainability and quality of life, this is where this plan really folds in with other efforts at the city. So looking at sustainability, housing plan, and others, and their relevant parts to prop up the economic prosperity of the city. And then lastly, under the little tile there is the delivery system. How do we work not only internally within Wheat Ridge on economic development, economic prosperity, but how do we also work with our partners that are out and about there? There is a geographic framework in this, and myself or Arlene can go into more detail in questions if you want to get a little bit more detail on it. But I mentioned earlier City of Corridors, but your corridors, oh, thank you so much. The corridors are distinctly different, east-west versus north-south, and this is something we also talked about back in August. So the north-south corridors are more regional serving in terms of the types of uses, the traffic counts, that type of thing. That's where a lot of sales tax is generated for the city, which is critically important around these north-south corridors. The east-west corridors tend to be more neighborhood serving, and that's what we're suggesting into the future, and I believe this recommendation is also embedded within the city plan. How do we look at these east-west corridors as edges and also ways to bring our neighborhoods together in Wheat Ridge? So 38th, 44th, 29th all fall into those east-west. I think we're stuck again. So if you can just click the map, I think we'll be good to go. There you go. Yeah. So Andrea, are you out there in Zoom land, and can we hear you?
Here. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you faintly.
Okay, I'll turn up my volume. How about now?
Reasonably well. Yeah, I'm getting nods around the table. So Andrea's going to take us quickly through the first three goals. I'll close with the fourth goal, and then we'll have time for questions.
All right, thanks, Brad, and thank you all for allowing me to do this remotely. Sorry, I can't be there in person. Okay, yeah, so goal 1 focuses on promoting the vitality of the city's commercial corridors. The first strategy is really about the future of West 38th. So looking at tactics to make it more walkable and exciting, providing amenities to make it unique, and really just building on that existing momentum that you're seeing on 38th. Strategy B looks at 44th Avenue, which we think in the longer term has potential to become more walkable and dynamic. In the nearer term, focusing energy on specific segments, such as that commercial hub between Kipling and Clear Creek, where the new makerspace is. Next slide, please. The plan also draws attention to the 29th and 26th commercial nodes, promoting investment to bring more foot traffic to those places. The next strategy explores ways to balance regional and local retail needed to sustain the tax base. Next slide. This one, so holding property owners accountable for building improvements was a priority that emerged in this planning process. So there are tactics that look at ways to work with owners to allow temporary uses and vacant storefronts, for example. Next slide, please. The next strategy is investing in redevelopment areas abutting I-70, including identifying needed projects in the new Clearvale URA. And then moving on to strategy G, which is about incorporating employment and commercial uses within the Lutheran redevelopment site to the extent feasible. Next slide. Moving on to goal 2. Goal 2 focuses on jobs, innovation, and manufacturing. The first one here is about retaining and attracting light manufacturing. And what's important here is just continuing to work collaboratively at the regional level and with the private sector to better understand and anticipate the market for specific industrial uses, to assemble land as needed, as well as to tweak some of the incentive programs like the BDZ incentive. Next slide. The next strategy in goal 2 is to expand Wheat Ridge's inventory of flex space for innovative uses, including R&D, biomedical, and creative manufacturing. Just to clarify what flex is a real estate sector that basically it can accommodate multiple aspects of a business at a given time and over time, including office, light manufacturing and assembly, even retail, because it usually has flexible floor plates. And we heard from the Jeffco EDC that flex space is the fastest growing and most in demand real estate sector regionally. Strategy C focuses on recruiting small and mid-sized professional service firms, particularly who are getting priced out of Denver. Next slide. The next two strategies here are about coordinating existing resources like the Clear Creek Makerspace and existing local and regional grant programs to help spur new innovative businesses and really tap into all that creative potential that you have in town. Let's go to goal 3. So goal 3 covers attainability and quality of life. And as Brad alluded to, the link between quality of life and economic development is really one of the cornerstones of the Prosperity Plan. The first couple strategies are about better walking and biking access to business districts. Improving connections just makes sense to help increase foot traffic. A lot of the tactics are fairly straightforward, but go a long way, like adding bike parking and adding wayfinding signage to help orient people to business districts. And then along the same lines, strategy B, it seeks to add more public art along trails and corridors to make them more welcoming and user-friendly and to showcase local talent. And then strategy C is about enhancing the aesthetic and public realm design at gateways to ensure that people coming into Wheat Ridge's business districts by car or bike or foot, they really know that they're entering a unique place. The final two strategies here, they emphasize implementing recent plans to make Wheat Ridge more affordable and sustainable. So the 2023 housing strategy has a number of pretty critical recommendations to expand affordable home ownership and rental opportunities. The plan also defers to the sustainability plan that was recently completed for ways to make business operations more energy efficient. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brad for goal 4.
Great, Andrea, thanks. Your radio voice served you well here tonight. Andrea, little known to anybody, was a college disc jockey on radio back in the day. More importantly, Andrea was also the project manager in this project, and I just want to acknowledge her at this point. She's done a tremendous job throughout. In a small company like ours, our project managers do everything, so it's related to keeping the project on task, and then also content and even the design of the plan. So Andrea, in addition to the radio voice, just kudos for everything involved in the planning process. Goal 4 gets into how does the city actually implement these things, and also our relationships with our partners. So we talk about a business support ecosystem. We talk about maintaining and refining the economic development functions within the city. Also embedded within here, and Mr. Art can certainly address this in more detail if you're curious, but this is a bit of a succession plan as well, anticipating that you're going to have a change in staffing during the life of this plan. So how does the city prepare for that, and how does that relate to the different departments within? Also within the support ecosystem, improvements to business permitting and licensing. We did meet with planning and building and all the different folks who are involved in the permitting process here. I think I mentioned this back in August. It was refreshing hearing your staff team be concerned about a permitting process that sometimes can take, 6 to 9 months, whereas right next door in Denver, it can take years. So your team is looking at some additional efficiencies, and those efficiencies are reinforced in this plan. Item C there was improving support systems for emerging entrepreneurs and elevating opportunities for minority-owned businesses. That's actually something we heard in this room back in August as a priority moving forward. And this also relates to incentives that are provided. Wheat Ridge is not necessarily an incentive-rich community, but you do have some tools at your disposal, and that can be particularly helpful for retail businesses, including small independent retail. Improving coordination with external partners to support the business community. So really looking at how do we better coordinate beyond the city. So you may recall back in August, we talked about the chamber, we talked about other organizations that are out there, the Business Association, Local Works, which you're really gifted to have, really acting as a community development corporation in many ways. And how can those folks also work better together? This plan does address that as well. Which gets to the next, is realigning these business organizations to be more seamless to the end user, to the small business. And we heard this from a variety of folks, that if you're a small business coming into Wheat Ridge, there's almost too much help. There's too many organizations. So we do have some recommendations on creating more of a seamless experience for folks. We had a work session with the Urban Renewal Authority, and we do have some high-level ideas for guidelines for looking at urban renewal projects moving forward. And then also maintaining partnerships with some of the larger economic development organizations that Wheat Ridge works with. So the Jeffco EDC, neighboring municipalities, community colleges, and others, all in the goal of partnership. So that is a run through the plan, highlighting the goals, touching on the strategies. I believe tonight we've got time that we can dig deep if you'd like, or ask any additional questions. And again, myself, Andrea online, and Arlene, we're all here to address any questions.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation, but really, I think a great plan. I think it really covers a lot of areas. So we'll open it up for questions. Council, who wants to go first? Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your report out. My question is about the BDZs. When is the last time we utilized a BDZ? I feel like it's been a very long time.
I think the last one might have been on King Soopers when they did their remodel, the Sheridan and 38th. I think we did both a BDZ and an ESTA, if I remember right.
Correct. And then there was one employment center that came about a year later. They were up at the I-70 Ward area. We used it on there for interior improvements.
Yeah.
So 10 years,
Yeah.
close to.
Yeah, well, and King Soopers has remodeled again since anyway,
Yep.
so. So the BDZs, like, you cannot utilize that if you're in a urban renewal area, but do we have to like designate actual areas for BDZs, or is it it could be ad hoc?
Originally, it was in segments. We then made it citywide. One of the recommendations of this plan is to take a look at the BDZ program, redesign it. Perhaps it could be if citywide, you don't have to, if you're in an urban renewal area that you're not eligible for it, perhaps that
Yeah.
would be a recommendation.
Yeah, because, and that's something that I was going to bring up to council later. You know, this plan's not yet adopted, but, you know, the BDZs, for you to be able to get a significant share back, you have to put in a large amount of money that a lot of our properties, commercial properties where they're at right now, won't necessarily need that much money into public improvements. And so it would really make sense for us to look at that. And it's in our code, so it'd be something that would have to come back to us to redo in our code. And then my only other question is on the S-tip. Was Grammy's Goodies the last S-tip we did?
Applejack, probably.
Applejack was an S-tip too?
Applejack.
Okay. And I support us also looking at the thresholds for that, because I know that threshold's so high that even like Grammy's Goodies isn't they're not really getting that much back from that STIP. And so it makes it kind of an ineffective tool. And so I just kind of wanted to bring those two things up because I will be bringing those up later once we adopt this plan as things that I think we need to dig in deeper. So, thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Counselor Hulteen.
Thanks. I've got a couple of things. First one's kind of just a reminder. How does this fit into the overall city plan process? I know that city plan is a collection of many plans, and so how does talking about this tonight then fold into other city plan efforts?
Let me take that, Patrick. Or do you? So we have received our first draft of the city plan. Many elements, especially a lot of Arlene's work, is built into the city plan. So the city plan in many instances will reference back to the prosperity plan the tactics are not listed in the city plan. So it would refer it back to the prosperity plan to move forward with those elements of it.
Okay, all right. So I've got a couple of just like nitpicky little things, but they kind of matter to me. So on goal 1, under 1A, the second one where it says focus urban renewal funds and other resources, including potential bid funds. At the end of that bolded sentence, it says unique amenities to set West 38th Avenue apart from other local downtowns. And we continue to kind of toggle between calling it Main Street and downtown. And I'd like us to be consistent there because I think we've struggled. So it's a small thing, but I think it matters here. Like we're calling it our Main Street and we should be consistent with that. And then a second, just kind of language thing in goal 3, which I'm very excited, is calling out multimodal access. Under A, it says implement city plan mobility framework recommendations to create safer trail and bikeway crossings between neighborhoods and business districts, but it doesn't actually like name accessing it on road, being able to cross streets. If we could revise that language so that it's not just crossing between neighborhoods, but I mean, it just sounds like we're looking at just crossings and not actually investing in safe network for traveling on roads.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, that's
So
3A, the first
goal
bullet?
3A, yeah.
Yep.
It just, yeah, the way it's listed there, it looks like it's just looking at crossings, and I'd like to make sure that that goal is also referencing that safe passageway on our bike network.
Oh, okay. So
And I think those were, oh, and then my last one is just a question. So under goal 3, E, again, I'm excited. We just adopted our sustainability plan, but it says relevant tactics to be identified from the Wheat Ridge Sustainability Plan. So what's a process in which we're referencing that here, but then those tactics actually find a foothold in here? Is that something that gets amended later? Yeah, so it says implement recommendations from the Wheat Ridge Sustainability Plan to make business operations more energy and resource efficient. And then it says relevant tactics to be identified from the Wheat Ridge Sustainability Plan. And so how does that get cross-referenced into here? I mean, it's referencing that there are tactics somewhere?
That's a good question. So when we wrote these, the sustainability plan had not been approved by this council yet. So we didn't have anything to really throw in there. We can certainly look at the sustainability plan and see which ones are relevant to business.
I think that would be helpful. I mean, everything else has specifics and this is like fairly vague. And so I think it should be pretty easy to find those and pull some out here. And I know that we've been working for a year, but if we're referencing it and it exists, if we can pull some of those forward, that would be great.
And I believe most of that sustainability plan that talks about economic development is like in section
Yeah.
27 or whatever that is.
Yep. And I know it's one of their focus areas this year, so they should be able to provide some pretty clear things. Other than that, there's a lot of stuff in goal 4 that has me really excited, and I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues to figure out some prioritization there to get going. So thank you everyone for your work on this.
Thank you. Additional discussion, questions around the plan? Counselor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I believe we've kind of had this revolving conversation around how many business organizations support Wheat Ridge. And I think I'd probably like to hear more from staff about where those conversations are, how you anticipate facilitating those, and trying to gain a little bit more cohesive or I don't know, condensed kind of organization, because I mean, I think we've been having those conversations for a long time and we haven't been all that successful.
And I can't tell you tonight that we are any more closer to an answer to that. We are not any closer.
Local Works helped facilitate some of those discussions, and unfortunately, it didn't go as far as we hoped. I think Puma had some recommendations. I think, I don't know if it's in the report, if it's just more verbal, but maybe use a carrot and stick with some of the organizations. We've had some ask recently from them for some city funding. And maybe that's one way. It's like we provide some funding, but we ask that they work in a different manner. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, Patrick, we did cite that actually in 4E. We cited the notion of a carrot, particularly if these folks are knocking on the door for funding, that if they're going to take your money, you can provide conditions that maybe they work together. So that's one area. I don't know if there's many sticks, honestly. I think it's more of a carrot and incentive opportunity to get these folks on the same page.
Counselor Hobby.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about one note. When we were talking about like expanding flex workspace, that's going to require working with like private property owners and doing like potential private public partnerships to do that. Is there any kind of like baked in plan to work on that? Or is that just kind of like this is what we'd like to do. Now we need to come up with a process to get to that place.
Arlene, I may put you on the spot. Do you see anything in the metro area that could be instructive here regarding flex space and making that happen?
There are the urban renewal areas, and I think that those are potential spots for the flex industrial use. Historically, in Jefferson County, it's a use that's been very popular. And actually, I think businesses on the west side of Denver, they don't need as much encouragement. I think that part of the issue here really is the lack of like available land and sort of the infrastructure to support that. So I think that in this particular case, the urban renewal designations for a few of these areas would certainly help, attract and incentivize some of those types of companies to locate here. So I think more of the issue here is just the lack of really appropriate available, land and space.
Well, and I feel like it'd be something like we'd have to really look at some like retroactive retrofit type stuff. I mean, we are a very built out community. And so that's kind of what I was wondering, like, if we're working with private property owners and we're saying, hey, we'd really like you to kind of, instead of bringing on more B-level office space, we're looking for more flex space, then how do we work with them to be able to fulfill that goal?
And that may be where the revised BDZ program comes in.
Okay.
Our niche, excuse me, Patrick, our niche in Wheat Ridge is really the 5,000 square foot and smaller. That's really, we don't have, I get RFPs out all the time to say we're looking for 125,000 square feet on 30 acres. We just don't have that in Wheat Ridge. We're always going to be the small startup businesses.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Steve, that our current BDC program is really focused on the creation of new employment. So I think with some modifications, maybe it could help with some incentives for this flex space use. So we'll look at that when we bring back BDC refinements.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to compliment the amount of work that went into this report. It's very thorough and it highlights some areas that need to be highlighted. I'd also recommend that if you have a chance, look through the demographics that Arlene has produced. They're very, very thorough and very enlightening. In particular, when we look at transportation issues and some of the things that that have been identified in terms of the corridors, the north-south tend to be connectors versus the east-west. But the plan, and it is, the same ideas keep popping up throughout the plan. And they are reflective of some of the other things going on, but the concern I have is that there's very little mention of even the issue of traffic, particularly on the north-south, and traffic management and improvements. And I realize when Wadsworth is completed someday, that will help a lot, but the complaint that I hear over and over again from people that don't live in Wheat Ridge is, oh, the traffic's so terrible on Kipling and Sheridan and Wadsworth. And there are things that the city can do, working, with partners in the Colorado Department of Transportation and others, to address some of these issues in terms of traffic management. And I really would like to see at least a recognition of this being a possible hindrance for companies wanting to relocate here. I understand we're very close to transportation, and some of that can be taken advantage of, particularly when you get out near Ward Road. But it does need to be, I think it does need to be spelled out in here somewhere. Yeah, that's it for now.
Thank you. Counselor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. This was a great report. Love the graphics, the vision. One question I did have was looking at, I can see like on some of the maps, which makes sense, it talks about sales tax, and it shows the colors that are generally along our major corridors. But what I'd also like to understand is, how does that overlay with density in that area? And then that's question number one. And then the other question that I think might be a little interesting is that we have portions of the city where we've been able to take the height and density out of the city charter. And I don't know if you considered, having some type of understanding, be it a graphic of like, okay, here's the max potential of that height and density, but what is the reality of that density? So where is density working where we prescribe density, and where is it falling short? So those are kind of my two questions.
Arlene is the generator of maps. I don't think we looked at density necessarily, but what?
City plan conversation as well. So I think the city plan team is exploring that relationship between what we see happening with sales tax and then the supporting density in those neighborhoods. So they're taking a closer look at that. Did you want to?
And I'd say that also correlates, Councilman Larson, with within the city plan, they talk about traffic and transportation in there. So there are a lot of elements of this that you may not see there, but they're in the city plan that we didn't delve into in the density and what that means. But that's really a zoning issue, and that's where that's going to be addressed.
Thank you, Counselor Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I, again, appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. I think there's, kind of like Councilor Holteen said, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and we just need to prioritize where we need to go with this. One thing that I guess I need to call out our staff for, because I really appreciate this, is trying to improve our sounds like pretty low response or pretty low time as far as getting permits and things like that go. We're talking about months rather than years. But if we can take advantage of that and be even better and keep attracting businesses from other cities, that's huge. I think I saw like 4 articles this weekend about restaurants leaving Denver for various reasons and things like that. And if we can take advantage of that while that's happening, that's huge. So I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. And I think trying to realign the business support organizations is going to be huge over the coming months and years. And it's a constant battle, but really it is difficult to be a business owner in Wheat Ridge because you're pulled in 3 or 4 different directions, and not all the information is the same, and it's very challenging. So, I would constantly ask that those organizations get back to work and work together because it is better for all the businesses in Wheat Ridge and all the citizens. But thank you for the hard work on this, and I hope we can get to work tearing into this. What's the expected date to have this back for approval?
Patrick, do you have a date? Hopefully.
Yeah, if we get direction this evening, if there's no major changes, I don't know if we've had the schedule. I can't remember, Corey, when we met, but it can go as soon as our next regular meeting after the first of the year, if there's no major changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to echo lots of thanks. This is a fantastic report, and I am super excited about a lot of the things being brought forth here. One question for Steve. Can you remind me, I should know this, the business walk happens every other year, correct? And it is on all of our major east-west corridors, or how is that?
Pretty much I pull out a city map, and if we did an area the walk before, I'll ignore that area and go to a new area of town.
Got it, okay. And
It's me throwing a dart at the map, and
Sure.
wherever it lands, that's where we do it.
there's a business where it lands.
Although this last one, like, we ignored Wadsworth on purpose, this last one, just because of the construction. We weren't going to really hear much positive. So
Right.
when that's complete, then we'll go back to Wadsworth.
Got it. And also on that subject of reaching out to businesses and supporting businesses, could you, I see some of the other, well, it's not really that, can you just kind of go over, other than Business Walk and reaching out to businesses to find out how they're doing, feedback, support, anything they need, how are those handled? Is it just kind of a one-off basis?
Which is why part of the recommendation of this plan is to change the name of the office. Economic development makes no sense. It's a great conversation killer at a dinner party, but it really doesn't say what this office do. And for the most part, we're an office of business facilitation. So wherever that comes through, hopefully it filters to me that there's some sort of problem with business. And then we will make a determination on that if it goes to public safety, if it goes to community development, directly to the city manager, whatever that needs to elevate itself to, will be through that. Through the WRBA, through the chamber, through the ABA, I make sure people know who I am, and then I'm available 24/7 to reach out anytime you have any issues.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. And just like to echo kind of what Mayor Pro Tem Stites was just saying and what we've all said about just a little bit more cohesion with our various business organizations. I am a big fan of streamlining there. So thanks for this report. Great work. Thank you so much.
Counselor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. The first one is a question for Steve. Tell us a little bit more about what the concern about the renewal Wheat Ridge is now and how you might think about streamlining.
Well, I was not involved in those conversations. I walked out of the room because I wanted that board to be as honest as possible. And I think Councilmember Hoppy was in that meeting, so she can probably talk about what that was.
Yeah, but the board itself doesn't have any concern about whether we're effective or not. What we were hoping for is probably more of a more outlined mission. If you think about Wheat Ridge over the last 10 years, or even when I bought my building on 38th in 2010, right? So the last 14 years. When I bought that building, it was stripped out, it had mushrooms growing in it, like it was a shell, it had a mud for parking lot. And you could also go to the edge of my lot and throw a rock and hit 7 other businesses that were either for sale or for lease, right? And so a lot of what the urban renewal was doing and a lot of what the Wheat Ridge Business District was doing was putting a lot of investment into our brick and mortar and shoring up our business community, which we've done an excellent job. Both of us have done an excellent job doing that. Now it's more like, where is our vision, right? Like, and I said this before I was even on council. It's like, look, Wheat Ridge can have nice things. We just have to ask for it. Now we're at a place where we're comfortable with that for asking for it, right? But we also were at a place 14 years ago where if you were going to make it better, we were going to give you money to do it. Now we're in a place where we can be more particular and more precise about what we're doing with our dollars. We can say things like, we'd really like your project that you want us to give you, tax increment financing for, to also involve some affordable housing in it. Or, so there was kind of like, we're really looking for more of kind of a specific mission. We've fulfilled the mission of filling the buildings and making them look good and shoring them up and bringing in the businesses. And the business district also has done a really great job with that. Now, what's our next path down the road, I think is what that conversation was really about.
And thank you. And yeah, no, I completely agree. The evidence is there. Just drive up and down any one of our corridors. And it's very, very unusual and rare to see a building that isn't open for business. And I think that speaks very well for how we got here. The other thing then, the other suggestion I would make is that there is a distinct lack of sort of self-promotion. We never talk about what a great place we have. I would like to see a lot more built into any economic plan that looks at, okay, we've done all these things. We've got a really cool city here. There's a lot of really nice places to go, but we don't talk about it. We don't tell anybody. Let's amplify the message. Let's get marketing people that have good ideas to put some of these good ideas in place and let the rest of the world know that Wheat Ridge is a great place to come on and have a nice meal or do some business with somebody or just come here and see what we've got. Amplify the message.
And I believe that is built into the plan, correct? We do talk, I believe, at least in the industrial area, job creation, promoting that.
I had a few things that I wanted to do before we go to a second round, so I'll be with you all. But Corey, thank you for bringing the report and your team. I was really excited about it. I've been a businessman in Wheat Ridge with a little restaurant, pumped a lot of money into the little block that I'm on, over the last 12 years. But, there's been a lot of growth in our city, and I think good growth. One thing I didn't really see in the report was sort of impacts that we might look at from the Wadsworth Boulevard transportation corridor being finished. And is there new development behind the curb that we'd be looking for? Is it more national retailers or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think with WADS being whatever you want to call it, redeveloped?
Rebuilt?
Rebuilt?
Yes.
It falls into the north-south corridor characterization that we've made, and you are going to see more marketability for the national chains and some of the larger sales tax generating uses. So I think it only reinforces what it is. I hear you on the traffic impacts. In theory, these design modifications are going to try to relieve that, but there's too much around you. That's the other thing on the north-south corridors. There's too much around you can't control. So what's happening in Arvada, what's happening in Lakewood, what's happening, name your suburb. Unfortunately, you're going to have some limitations. So I just go back to that primary, and I hope to me, it was enlightening to me, but I'm not here every day like you folks are. But from a policy standpoint, to acknowledge these north-south corridors are going to be high traffic and they are going to be optimal for sales tax generation, while really looking at the nuances of these east-west corridors as neighborhoods serving. And when you talk about density and you talk about demographics, That's how we were looking at the east-west, is on a neighborhood scale. How many people are within walking distance of these east-west? Whereas with your north-souths, they are going to be impacted by vehicles for decades to come, likely.
And then the other one, it's an ambitious plan. What sort of money would we need on an annual basis to make real progress on this plan? How much do we need to budget?
We did, if you'll notice in the full plan, in the report, in the appendix, because these tactics are in there 2 or 3 times, but in the appendix, we have dollar signs for you. So some of these, and this gets to the notion of low-hanging fruit, some of them are policies and really don't require dollars at all. And then we coded them $1, $2, or $3 signs with different levels of investment. So that's number one, is we're trying to give you some sense of magnitude of expense or order of magnitude. So maybe we focus on some of the low-hanging fruit. We also, and I mentioned this back in August, with all our plans, and this one in particular, we really try to understand where we're working and what your resources available are. So there's nothing particularly grandiose in here. There's nothing in millions of dollars. I mean, we do get into 6 digits, but so we're trying to give you a set of ideas with some sense of sequencing and some sense of financial impact, with the basic understanding that we're in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. This is not, this is not Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Or Denver.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I had the opportunity and the privilege of doing this last summer was being a table facilitator at the State of the City for Denver. And it was really interesting because we got to ask a lot of, we had businesses that were helping support the event from all over Denver, outside of Denver. And I just wonder if there might be some type of opportunity where we could have something similar, where you'd have all the different business districts, you need to get them all together under one roof and, for a couple of hours. And then what we do is we also have businesses come in, and then we ask questions back and forth and see what is working, and then have some type of analysis of like, does this sound familiar to anybody? I know that Jeffco used to do something like this, I think, a while back.
And there is a tactic in there that states
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Hulteen.
Thanks. I'll make this quick. Councilmember Larson's comments around spreading the good word. It reminded me of when we did that. I don't know, was it 6 years ago, 7 years ago with Lou Sasko, and had the Sweet Ridge campaign, and it was, and it was really successful. It really gave us an opportunity to portray our city as, a great, vibrant community, and we put a face on who we are, and I think it was really successful. I think what I see and hear, and I just really think comes to the forefront and is mirrored in city plan, is that what we're learning through all the planning this year, but kind of anchoring back a few years, is that we are a bunch of different destinations, and so the focus in here on like the corridor level branding and marketing, and like come to 44th, come to 2026 is, I think, really important, because it's got the partnerships with the local businesses that they're really central. And the Explore 44 brand that's come up this year, I think, is a really great example of, businesses coming together, creating the identity, creating a destination, so that we're starting, it's like we've become successful enough that the corridors are the destination, not Wheat Ridge. I mean, Wheat Ridge as a whole is fantastic. So I hope as this moves forward and we're prioritizing, we're really looking at how do we support, those corridors, promoting themselves as destinations, and in part because what comes out of that is just these unique identities that I think really compound the positive business growth. And I want to celebrate that's where we are. Like, we have enough niches now to be at that level, and enough businesses who I think are leaning in to be strong partners in that space, which again underscores the need for a little bit more unification across our different business associations so that can happen. And then, my metric on this, And I think like everything I've been thinking about this year and next is like, does this support someone bringing their good idea to Wheat Ridge? I just want Wheat Ridge to be a place where people bring their good ideas, and we can't make all good ideas successful, but I want the invitation to be there. I want people to have the vision, and I want us as a city to, be either like a city of opportunity or, know who to point to have mapped internally within our city, like how those good ideas can happen. So I think this plan has a lot of that infrastructure in place. It's also a lot in the plan, which is why I'll close again with like, for us to be prioritizing where to get started. But I just want to say this plan has that excitement for me. And that's been my metric for everything we talked about here is like, can you bring your good idea to Wheat Ridge? Because I think we've had a lot of great ideas take root here and there's a lot more on the horizon. So just thank you.
Thank you. Corey, I think that was a great discussion. Thank you very much for you and your Puma team to bring this to us, and we appreciate it. I think council staff is looking for consensus to move the plan forward. Do we have consensus to do that? We do. So thank you very much.
Great. Mayor, council, thank you so much for entrusting us on this. We've enjoyed working with your community. We've enjoyed working with each of you. We had interviews with you all, met with you all in August. And thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I should mention, I don't think I did before we started our meeting, that we usually start with public comment, but no one had signed up to speak. So we went directly to our action items, but I wanted to make that for the record, if you would. We're now going to move into agenda item number 2. This is a discussion on the Legislative Advocacy Program update. And Cole is here, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Goff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you're right, Cole and Marianne are here, and our Legislative Advocacy Committee is here, Mr. Mayor and council members Hulteen and Larson. So I think they can probably add to the conversation tonight. But this was a city council initiated suggestion to create more of a legislative program for the city of Wheat Ridge. And Cole has been working hard to put together some suggestions, and he is here this evening to present those.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. It's a pleasure to be able to present here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council, for the opportunity. Tonight's presentation is going to be 2 parts. First, we're going to have an overview of the Legislative Advocacy Program as a refresher. And then secondly, we're going to have an update from the Legislative Committee. We're not asking for any consensus from the City Council tonight, but we would be happy to receive any feedback on any of the items we're discussing tonight. So let's begin with an overview of the Legislative Advocacy Program. The 4-part program consists of the legislative agenda, the Legislative Committee, advocacy position resolutions, and lobbying. The legislative agenda, a copy of which is included in your packet, is designed to be a document which outlays the city's positions on a variety of issues. So it states the types of bills that the city would support, the types of bills that the city would oppose. This agenda was created in collaboration with each of the departments here at the City of Wheat Ridge and in alignment with the city's adopted plans. The agenda is intended to be used by the Legislative Committee to help them select 3 to 5 bills each legislative session to recommend for the consideration of advocacy position resolutions by the council. These advocacy position resolutions state what a bill does, how it impacts the city of Wheat Ridge, and lays the foundation for the city's subsequent lobbying work on the bill. If the city council adopts an advocacy position resolution on a bill, then that triggers staff to begin lobbying on that bill. Those lobbying activities may include mailers to legislators, providing testimony in committees, and any other similar activities. And this lobbying is designed to be done with guidance, oversight, and assistance from our legislative committee. That concludes the overview of the Legislative Advocacy Program as was presented to Council back in September. Moving on to give an update from the Legislative Committee. The Legislative Committee met on December 3rd to begin laying the groundwork for the 2025 legislative session. The committee considered the legislative agenda, and their plan is to continue reviewing and refining that legislative agenda with a goal of it being brought forward to council to consider adopting it in 2025. That way we can use it throughout the entirety of the legislative session. Next, the Legislative Committee is considering some threshold criteria to help them select those 3 to 5 bills for advocacy position resolutions. These threshold criteria are alignment with the city's legislative agenda, alignment with Colorado Municipal League priorities, impact on the city of Wheat Ridge, and community consensus. And the idea is that from those 50 to 100 bills that are introduced each legislative session that impact the city, they'll pick 3 to 5, and they have to meet these threshold criteria. Lastly, to also help them prioritize those 3 to 5 bills and select them, the committee is considering establishing focus areas like affordable housing or transportation, again, to help them set priorities for the 2025 session. So the committee is inviting feedback on the legislative agenda included in your packet, the proposed threshold criteria, what those focus areas should be for the 2025 legislative session, and the overall direction of the legislative advocacy program. The next time from tonight that you could expect to hear about the legislative advocacy program will be when that legislative agenda is brought forward in 2025, and then subsequently when those advocacy position resolutions are recommended from the committee. That concludes staff's presentation tonight. Happy to answer any questions that you have, but for now, I'll turn the meeting back over to the mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Mr. Mayor, Councilman Larson, and Councilwoman Hulteen for being our legislative committee. I just want to say that I do appreciate the way that you guys have decided to set up your threshold criteria and your priority areas and your key focus areas. I agree with them. And I realize that you're really just kind of getting started and that we'll be hearing more from you, but I like the outline of how you're going to be moving forward. And I appreciate you taking this up for us as a body. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hulteen, and I'll add the chair of the subcommittee.
Thank you, Cole, for all your work on this, and thank you, Mayor. Something that I want to clarify. So we've heard from Cole tonight, and is in the memo, a selection of 3 to 5 bills. It could be that there's 0 bills we need to talk about. I just want to, 3 to 5 is I think probably what we should anticipate. But we're not going to just go find 3 to 5 bills, so we have 3 to 5 bills. In a legislative session, that's about the number of bills that are going to come up that probably fit our threshold test. It could be 1 or 2. It could be that, the governor and this legislature decide that they're going to just make it illegal for, high intensity to be in charters, or, there could be something that really targets something that's important to us, in which case we may be looking at more than 5. But in the most recent, legislative sessions, we've been seeing probably in that target amount. So I want to clarify, we're not, don't expect a hard 3 to 5. That's a good target. We could get lucky and there could be fewer than that, or it could be the kind of year where things that we've heard from you, our priorities are really being pushed in ways that aren't in alignment with their threshold criteria, in which case we'll just really want to be prudent with both our time as a council and our staff's time. And, we don't, staff's time is incredibly valuable resource. And so, if we're getting more, we just really want to be careful with that. So I just wanted to clarify that point a little bit. Thanks.
Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that somewhat answered my question as to like where the 3 to 5 came from. Is that also limited by capacity, or if we do need to address more than 5, do we have the bandwidth?
We don't have a ton more bandwidth. So we'd love it if we could keep it to 3 to 5. But if something really important does come up, we can certainly try to make some room for the most important things.
Thank you. Councilor Larson.
And to add to that, I had first suggested like America's Top 40, and thought 40 be a nice round number. And no, I'm actually kidding. But the idea is that with a manageable number like 3 to 5, maybe one or more, or maybe, as Rachel says, we may look at the legislative agenda coming out of the Capitol and see that the Colorado Municipal League has a good handle on it, and they're focusing on a lot of things that are totally aligned with what we have outlined here, and then there you go. But we wanted to be able to provide at least something that we can anticipate when we come back and the session is going hot and heavy in the Capitol, and we're ready because we've looked at these and we've kind of vetted the idea that, okay, this housing issue that they're considering is just not aligned with what we think here in Wheat Ridge. So that was the idea, and it just seems like that's a manageable number, and obviously our resources are limited. But I think if we can have those, and obviously the list will be dynamic over the course of the session. 1 or 2 items may fall off, 1 or 2 items may replace them. But the idea here is to be flexible, but also be focused.
Thank you. And I'll chime in that CML has 4 lobbyists on staff and do a thorough vetting on this. And, we're talking about maybe us taking initiative, but there's also a role for us to be a support facilitator or facility for CML in terms of lobbying our representatives and things that happen on the Hill. So we can maybe work hand in hand with their lobby team and be more effective as a city and get our presence out there in a more substantial way also. All right. Any more questions for Cole? Cole, thanks for a great discussion. I think you really got a nice package put together, and I think we're going. Councilor Hulteen.
Sorry, I have a chip in my mouth, and one more quick thing. One thing we talked about at our committee meeting that kind of got me excited is, we host our state legislators here, and it's an opportunity for us to hear what they're working on. And it'll be exciting this year because we can actually present our legislative agenda to them and our city's priorities. So it actually, just in a small way, that's a really exciting proactive step that we really haven't done in the past, so that we can here at this table with our state legislators, tell them these are the priorities that we've identified and that we care about, so that they're able to take those with them. So that's another great benefit of starting this work.
And that can be really beneficial when we get down to a critical bill. I remember last year before, the governor's series of proposals coming out on affordable housing and mandates on home rule cities and stuff like that, and we were able to be effective with our legislators in advocating our position on that. So anyway, all right, Cole, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And Mary Ann, thank you. Okay. Short and sweet. Okay, that covers our 2 agenda items. We'll now go to staff reports. Mr. Goff.
Merry Christmas. Nothing else for me. This will be our last meeting until after the holiday. And yes, January 13th, to Mr. Steitz's question, we can get the prosperity plan on January 13th for approval by resolution. But we'll have a study session on January 6th is our next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Elected officials reports. Councilor, Hulteen.
Thank you. I have 2 things. I have a piece of business. I'm just so excited for the Green at 38th to come, and we've had so many great events in our city well, as long as I've been here, but I think we're getting more event-tastic. And I think it would behoove us as a city to take a look at a large events permitting process, a process where when we have a certain threshold of people that are gathering in our parks, that it triggers a review process that's looking a little more closely at egress, access, safety, different things like that. I think with the green, we're going to have, more good ideas coming to our city. We have some great ones already established here. So I would like to ask if I have any support to have a large event permit process put on the study
I'll
session.
support you with that.
We have one. We
Oh,
can
we
bring
do?
it to you
Okay.
if you want to see it. But we
Okay.
have a process we put in place several years ago because some of these events were getting a little out of hands. And, you need to address, sometimes they want liquor or bands or outside music. So it addresses everything in there. But it's a pretty comprehensive process. It's ran out of the Parks and Rec department.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we're happy to bring it forward or send you a copy of the permit if you just want to look at it. And if you have more questions, we could bring a study session forward.
All right, I will take a look at it with my peers that I discussed
Okay.
this with, and
Okay.
we'll follow up from there. And then I have a happy story. I grabbed coffee with our city treasurer, Chris Miller, on Friday at a local coffee shop, and we walked in, and this woman looked up, and she's like, "Oh, you're Counselor Rachel," and I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, I watch it. Weaver City Council is so amazing. I watch it like every Monday night, and I'm constantly surprised at how many people are actually watching us. Like you forget sometimes a little bit. I don't forget, but it's no way we know sitting here how many people are out there in the community watching. But what was really particularly delightful about this is that she doesn't even live in Wheat Ridge, and she is just so inspired by how much we're getting done around this table and in this room. And she it was just really like, I wanted you guys to hear this, that the work we do here is not, we're benefiting this city, we're doing really good work, but I think, again, we're doing it in a way that other communities don't always get to benefit from. A collaborative, not always agreeing on everything council, but a council that has tremendous respect for each other and our city and the work we do. And it's being noticed by other people outside the city. So we're like a great little reality TV show on Monday. And with that, I just want to thank you guys for a great 2024. We've done a lot of really good work here, and 2025 is going to be really exciting. And I'm looking forward to doing the work with you guys. So thanks so much.
Thank you, and that's why you should always be on your best behavior while you're here. Any additional reports? Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think last week was a really busy week, but I got to spend it with some really cool people. I wanted to shout out to the Wheat Ridge Business Association who had their holiday luncheon last week. I couldn't make it because of the Jeffco late start, messed everything up, but that's how it works. Big shout out to Local Works who had their Barstool Bingo and just absolutely, it sounds like they smashed their fundraiser goal for 2024. So congratulations to Local Works on that. And then the Chamber had their holiday celebration last week too. So a lot of great people. We talked a little bit about those economic development groups tonight a little bit. And while, we kind of talk about them not being in alignment, doesn't mean they're not fantastic people who do a lot of greatness for our community. So absolutely love those people. So thank you to all those business owners who help make Wheat Ridge a great place. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional reports? Councilor Larson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And if you recall, last Tuesday was Colorado Gives Day, and everything I've seen points to another record year for contributions and donations to some very worthy nonprofits around Colorado, and specifically here in Wheat Ridge. I did attend that the Wheat Ridge Business Association lunch, and the speaker was a real gem. She holds the world's record. This is the story she told, and she told a wonderful story about how she is an outdoor swimmer and swims across open water and holds the world record for swimming the English Channel 4 times. And
At
as she-
once.
4 laps.
Four laps,
Four
but
laps.
that's back and forth, and you only get 10 minutes when you get to the other side. It's like unbelievable. Sometimes the things that drive people to do these crazy things, I can't imagine. But then, as this is our last meeting of 2024, I'd like to wish everybody out there in TV land a very warm and welcome holiday season, and hope everybody rings in the new year, and 2025 turns out to be a year of good for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments before I close things out? I want to tell you what I think a great year it's been. It's been my pleasure to be here this year, and I'm not done yet, but we are coming to the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. So just happening locally, I was at the Barstool Bingo, great event, and I'll tell you, we have a lot of fun in our city, because and it was a great time raising money for the Wheat Ridge, or for the local Works Makerspace. What a great facility that is, and a great group of people. WRBA and the Wheat Ridge Chamber, both great organizations, had great holiday celebrations, and they're different organizations, but they really cross-pollinate quite a bit. I mean, I'm a member of WRBA, but I mean, the chamber people are at our events, we're at the chamber's events. And, I think there's a real congeniality about the business in Wheat Ridge, and I think that's part of what makes us successful. Had a wonderful coffee with the mayor this last Saturday morning. Gee, we had almost 20 attendees there to kind of have coffee and talk about what was going on, and really gives me a lot of insights to be able to listen to the people that really make up our city and the great ideas that we've got. So I want to thank all of them for being there. I'm going to be out of town in the January, so we're going to postpone that for another time, so we won't have that one. But anyway, I want to wish all of our residents and citizens out in television land. It's always emboldened to hear that we've got people that listen to our broadcasts here on Monday night. I hope we're enjoyable and thoughtful what we say, and that we provide an open forum into your city government. We love to have you being online or coming into council chambers to tell us what you think we should be doing in our city. So thanks everyone for working together. Thanks to a great city staff and all the presenters that presented tonight. We appreciate you all. And if there's nothing to come before us, we will close this meeting with a happy holiday, and we'll see you all in the new year.